us kissing was
Oh, yeah?
the most horrifying thing either of us have
Yeah.
ever had to go through.
One of my favourite moments on set ever was the moment when all the floating candles started burning through the ropes that tied them to the ceiling and just started falling around the Great Hall.
For more than 2 decades, the Harry Potter films and books have enchanted fans, sparking endless rewatches, debates, and theories. Devoted fans have scoured every frame and page, convinced they had uncovered all the hidden meanings and subtle details. Yet, some truths stayed beneath the surface, subtle moments and insights that only later came to light through candid cast interviews, directorial commentary, or even clarifications from J.K. Rowling herself. These revelations weren't the obvious Easter eggs or plot twists fans proudly spotted, but rather the overlooked master strokes, behind-the-scenes stories, and creative decisions that reshaped how the wizarding world is understood. Now, join us as we take you through a few things that casts have shared that most fans couldn't catch on to even after all these years, showing that the magic still holds surprises, Harry Potter mania and how the boy who lived took over the world. When Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone first appeared on bookstore shelves in the United Kingdom in June 1997, it looked like any other children's fantasy novel. The initial print run was modest, just a measly 500 copies in hardback, many of which went straight to libraries. Yet within months, this small book about an orphan boy who discovered he was a wizard began to spread by word of mouth, creating a ripple that quickly turned into a tidal wave. What began as a children's story soon transformed into a cultural event unlike anything modern publishing had ever seen. The rise of Harry Potter wasn't instant stardom but a phenomenon that built its reputation step by step, drawing in readers of all ages and backgrounds. By the turn of the millennium, the series had become more than just a collection of books, it was a movement, an identity, and, for many children, their first unforgettable reading experience. The craze it sparked was so widespread and powerful that it would shape a generation and alter the landscape of popular culture. Harry Potter was a masterpiece of its time, succeeding in doing something many didn't think of, and that's how at the time, children's publishing rarely made international headlines. Popular series like Goosebumps had certainly found wide audiences, but they were often dismissed as light entertainment rather than cultural landmarks. Fantasy, especially, was seen as a niche, with Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings considered a classic but largely confined to literary and genre circles. In the midst of all this, J.K. Rowling's story looked unassuming considering that it had been rejected by multiple publishers before being picked up by Bloomsbury. From the beginning, there was something different about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Teachers noticed that reluctant readers were devouring it. Librarians saw waiting lists grow longer and longer. Parents, expecting to humor their children by reading aloud, found themselves hooked on the adventures of Harry, Hermione, and Ron. The book's secret lay in its accessibility. It blended the whimsical charm of a fairy tale with the suspense of a mystery novel, set against the backdrop of a magical world that was detailed but not overwhelming. For children, the idea of receiving a letter to Hogwarts was irresistible, and for adults, the humor and clever plotting made it far more engaging than most children's books. Soon, families weren't just reading Harry Potter, they were living it, discussing it, and sharing it across dinner tables. By the time of the second book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the buzz was undeniable. Sales soared, translations into multiple languages began, and J.K. won a string of awards. The third book, Prisoner of Azkaban, cemented the series' reputation as not just a publishing success but a cultural phenomenon in the making. Children began dressing as wizards for Halloween, clutching makeshift wands fashioned from sticks. Schools organized reading clubs devoted to the books, and friendships formed around shared speculation over what might happen next in the story. At the dawn of the internet age, early message boards and fan sites sprang up, filled with theories, fan art, and predictions. Still, the true turning point came with the release of Goblet of Fire in 2000. By this point, Harry Potter wasn't just popular, it was dominating the global stage. The book had an unprecedented first printing of over 5 million copies in the United States alone. To ensure fairness, publishers coordinated international release dates, so children in London, New York, Sydney, and Tokyo could open the book at the same time. The mania had officially arrived. Perhaps the clearest sign of just how deep Harry Potter mania ran came with the midnight book launches. Bookstores around the world hosted elaborate events, with fans lining up hours in advance to be among the first to grab the new installment, sometimes in full costume. The atmosphere was more like a rock concert than a book release. Children waved wands, parents wore wizard hats, and communities transformed their local bookstores into mini Hogwarts for a night. Pottermania wasn't just limited to the young. Parents, teachers, and even grandparents joined the lines. Some read the books alongside their children, while others admitted to sneaking chapters ahead when the kids were asleep. In a world where reading was often seen as a solitary activity, Harry Potter made it a shared activity, turning book launches into shared cultural moments. This cross-generational appeal meant that families could enjoy the books together. Parents who had grown up on Tolkien or Roald Dahl now found themselves bonding with their kids over Harry, Hermione, and Ron. Book clubs that had once focused on literary fiction were suddenly devoting meetings to Harry Potter. Newspapers published editorials analyzing the series' symbolism, and academics debated its moral and philosophical underpinnings. At the time, whether or not you read the books, you knew the names of Hogwarts houses, could recognize Harry's lightning bolt scar, and had at least heard of Quidditch. The success of the book was undeniable, and it was time to give the characters recognizable faces outside a page's description. The magic of Hogwarts brought to life on screen when Warner Brothers secured the film rights to the book. The world erupted on a whole new level. For many fans, the announcement of a film adaptation was both thrilling and terrifying. On one hand, it promised to bring the magic of Hogwarts to life in a way they had only imagined while reading. On the other hand, the stakes were high. Millions of children and adults around the world already had deeply personal visions of Harry, Hermione, and Ron in their heads, and everyone wondered nervously if Hollywood could do them justice. Few aspects of the film adaptation drew as much scrutiny as the casting process. Who would be the face of Harry Potter? What child could possibly carry the weight of a character who had become a cultural icon before ever appearing on screen? The search was long and tiring. Casting directors scoured schools across the UK, determined to find actors who not only looked the part but could embody the spirit of JK's characters. Thousands of children auditioned, but none seemed quite right for the lightning-scarred hero until a young Daniel Radcliffe. The films weren't replacing the books, they were reinforcing them, giving fans new dimensions to analyze and debate. Merchandise tied to the films also exploded. Suddenly, children could own movie-accurate wands, house robes, and action figures modeled after the actors they saw on screen. The synergy between the books, films, and products ensured that Pottermania was no longer cyclical, tied only to book release dates. Instead, it became constant, renewed every time a new movie poster appeared or a teaser trailer dropped. One of the most unique aspects of the Harry Potter films was how the young cast aged in real time alongside the characters. Fans watched Daniel, Emma, and Rupert grow from children into teenagers and eventually into adults, mirroring Harry, Hermione, and Ron's journeys. This parallel development created an unusual bond between the cast and the audience. For many fans, the actors weren't just performers but companions who grew up alongside them. Kids who entered elementary school with Sorcerer's Stone graduated high school alongside the release of Deathly Hallows Part 2. The sense of shared coming of age made the franchise deeply personal. At the same time, the adult cast lent the films a following that elevated them beyond children's fare. Performers like Maggie Smith, Gary Oldman, and Ralph Fiennes brought Shakespearean weight to their roles, ensuring that adults in the audience were just as enthralled as their children. The blend of fresh young actors and seasoned veterans created a balance that sustained the franchise's credibility for a full decade. The actors themselves became international celebrities, their faces instantly recognizable around the world. With each release, the premieres grew larger, the lines at theaters longer, and the global box office records higher. While fans were captivated by what they saw on screen, countless things were happening behind the scenes: casting decisions, on-set dynamics, creative choices, and even Easter eggs that would only later be revealed. Secrets from the casts that fans never saw on screen. As the Harry Potter books and films captivated the world, audiences devoured every moment of the story. From Harry's first trip to Diagon Alley to the final battle at Hogwarts. But while millions were caught up in the magic on screen, countless details were happening just out of sight. Unscripted moments, subtle acting choices, and behind-the-scenes stories that only came to light years later when the cast began sharing them. These revelations, often overlooked in the initial frenzy, have since become treasured insights for fans revisiting the films with fresh eyes. One of the most surprising revelations from the cast is how many iconic moments weren't actually in the script. Daniel Radcliffe once admitted that some of Harry's quirks, such as his tendency to push his glasses up on his nose, came from necessity rather than direction. The glasses constantly slipped during filming, and instead of cutting, he incorporated the movement into Harry's character. Over time, this became so natural that many fans assumed it was a deliberate acting choice reflecting Harry's shy awkwardness. Rupert Grint also contributed his own touches to Ron Weasley. His frequent nervous giggles and bumbling mannerisms weren't always written into the script. Much of Ron's comedic timing was improvised, giving the character warmth and relatability beyond the page. Emma Watson, meanwhile, famously added her own know-it-all energy to Hermione. Directors encouraged her to lean into her natural intelligence and precociousness, resulting in line deliveries that felt sharper and more authentic than anyone had anticipated. Even minor interactions sometimes came from improvisation. Tom Felton revealed that in early scenes, he deliberately sneered or rolled his eyes at Daniel and Rupert to create tension, which the cameras picked up beautifully. The chemistry between the actors wasn't just scripted, it grew naturally from playful rivalries and genuine friendships on set. One of the recurring themes in these confessions is that the wizarding world, for all its movie magic, wasn't immune to mishaps, accidents, and even heartbreak. Take the Hogwarts Express, for instance. To millions of fans, it symbolized the start of adventure, but in reality, it twice fell victim to real-life vandalism. In 2003, pranksters managed to cover part of the train in silver and green graffiti while it was parked at a depot. A few years later, another group smashed several of its windows using the emergency hammers, forcing costly repairs and reminding everyone that even icons of cinema weren't safe from teenage recklessness. Daniel Radcliffe confessed to having his own brush with danger while shooting the underwater sequence for the Triwizard Tournament and Goblet of Fire. During one take, he mistakenly gave the scuba team the wrong signal, accidentally indicating he was out of air rather than simply all good. Trainers rushed him to the surface, and while the incident ended harmlessly, it showed how physically demanding and risky some of the magical set pieces actually were for young actors who appeared calm and composed on screen. Not every behind-the-scenes story had such a harmless ending. In 2009, Daniel's stunt double, David Holmes, was badly injured while filming a complex stunt for Deathly Hallows. A controlled explosion during a flying sequence went wrong, sending him crashing to the ground and leaving him paralyzed from the chest down. David had been with the film since the very beginning, and his accident was a sobering reminder of the very real dangers behind fantasy filmmaking. Despite the tragedy, he has remained close with Radcliffe and Tom Felton, who frequently speak about their admiration for his resilience. Meanwhile, during the climactic Hogwarts battle in Deathly Hallows, a pyrotechnic misfire sparked a fire that engulfed part of the castle replica. More than 100 crew members scrambled to contain the flames, and although no one was hurt and the damage was limited to a section already due for rebuilding, tabloids breathlessly reported that Hogwarts had burned. For the crew, it was just another day in the unpredictable life of filmmaking, albeit one that felt eerily appropriate given the destruction they were meant to be staging. Comedian Rick Mayall was initially cast as Peeves the Poltergeist, but his performance proved so hysterically funny that the young actors couldn't keep a straight face whenever he was on set. Even when asked to deliver his lines with his back turned, Mayall's antics had the children in stitches, throwing production into chaos. Ultimately, his scenes were cut, leaving Peeves absent from the final films, but fans still speculate about what might have been if his energy had been left in the mix. Sometimes the most memorable moments were the ones no one planned. During the infamous Prisoner of Azkaban confrontation where Hermione lashes out at Draco, Emma Watson was supposed to deliver a light slap. Instead, perhaps caught up in the tension of the scene, she landed a full punch on Tom Felton's face. Tom later joked that she had a surprisingly strong hook and admitted he was left rattled by the unexpected blow. Emma Watson and Tom Felton later admitted to a special friendship during filming. Emma confessed she had a childhood